Hello, everyone. I would like to welcome you all to a second season of Innovations in Sustainable Finance. As I look back on the last half year, ever since I've started this, I must say it's been a hugely rewarding activity. I would like to thank everyone out there for listening to the show, for providing feedback, and of course, my esteemed guests for being on the show and participating in it. I was very surprised when I checked the statistics of this podcast. To this day, there were roughly 40,000 downloads in lots of different locations. The majority, 40% of the listeners, are based in Switzerland, another 10% in Germany. And after that, it's the US, the UK, France, and lots of places around the world, India, Kenya, even a listener from Oman, listeners from Ukraine. I am absolutely astounded by the reach that this has had. I'm curious to learn what people all over the world are gaining from and are interested in this podcast. So at this point, I just wanted to reach out to any one of you listeners. Please feel free to write to me, tell me what you think of the show, tell me whom I should invite, what I should address. I'm really, really curious for your feedback. And most and foremostly, many thanks for your support and your attention. I'm really glad to have it. For the coming season, I have already a lineup of very exciting speakers and guests. I'm looking forward to dive into a range of, as announced, interesting, novel, sometimes even dangerous ideas around sustainable finance. We'll explore them all and discuss them here right in the podcast. With that, I'm happy to announce the next guest, episode 1 of season 2, and that is Aurel Schmid. Innovations in Sustainable Finance, a University of St.Gallen podcast by Julian Kölbel. Welcome to another episode of Innovations in Sustainable Finance. I'm Julian Kölbel, assistant professor at the University of St. Gallen and the host of this podcast. And today on the show, I have as a guest Aurel Schmid, the founder of Solarify, a very interesting company in Switzerland. Aurel, welcome to the show.
Hi, Julian. Thank you very much for having me here. Pleasure to be here and looking forward to a great discussion today.
Absolutely. So I'm so glad to have you here because a few things come together. We have at the University of St. Gallen a very nice group of students around the Managing Climate Solutions certificate. And in a collaboration, they have launched a project to have a solar panel installation on the rooftop of our university's gym. So there's lots of space for solar panels. And they did this in collaboration with Solarify. Is that right?
Yes, exactly. The university, they approached us to crowdfinance this project. And we thought it was a good idea because many people are interested and, we want to produce solar power. So that's great.
Exactly. Crowd finance is the key word here. And so this is an episode that's very current. So as of now, there's still the opportunity to become part of this project as an investor. There are panels at 980 Swiss francs a piece, I think, available online. And I'm actually just making up my mind whether I should be part of that as well. And it's very nice because on the homepage, it says you can get in touch with Aurel. I mean, that's, pretty great access to have the founder of that company on the phone to advise you on that investment and what it all entails. So that's a little bit the background why I invited Aurel, and I want to sort of dig into the specifications of that project. How should I think about that as an investment, and what does it do in the bigger picture? So sure. Let's start with you, Aurel. So tell us a little bit, who are you? And, what does Solarify do in a nutshell?
Well, yes, I am the founder. So who am I? I basically, maybe I start a little bit earlier. In the beginning, I was doing a master program in Lund and at the University of Lund. And as part of my master thesis, I was looking into a very similar concept. And so that was basically the start. But after finishing the master program, I came back to Switzerland, and I thought, well, nobody wants to offer me a solar panel, and that's why I needed to found Solarify. Really, that was the initial idea, to make solar panels available for small scale investors or buyers, as we tell them.
Nice. So you just realized there's a gap in the market and you went for it. When was that? When did you start?
I started in 2016, in the beginning of 2016. That was after coming back to London. I was looking for jobs, and then I found, yes, this is not present in the market, and I would like to buy one, and nobody would offer me solar panels to buy for like not much money. And so I thought somebody has to do it, and I founded the company for that reason, really, to implement that idea that people that are not like large-scale investors for several hundred Swiss francs could invest or buy solar panels and then earn the revenue from the sale of electricity.
Really cool. So let us talk a little bit about this particular project that is on offer right now. So this is solar panels on top of the University of St.Gallen gym. Can you walk us through the specifications of that project a little bit? So how large is it, and what are the opportunities for investors such as me, for example?
Yes. So we are using the roofs of that building. There's space for 521 solar panels. They will be producing about 200,000 kilowatt hours per year. Just to give you an example, that's about the amount of electricity that 200 people use in Switzerland per year. So we will be supplying electricity for 200 people. Like about half of it will be consumed in the facility at real time, and the surplus we export to the residential area close by to this building.
Super. So that's actually quite, there's quite a few people, 200 people. And so is that the total energy produced over an average year? Or is that more sort of the potential it could produce if the sun would shine all the time?
No, that's average, right? We estimate the production over 30 years, and in the beginning it's a little bit higher. So, but like in a general rule, you could say that we are producing electricity for 200 people on average in a year. Of course, in winter we will be producing a little bit less. In summer there will be more, but that's just the average that we can produce.
Okay, fantastic. So, okay, that is the size. And just out of curiosity, 521 panels. So how much area on the roof do I have to have if I want to install something like that?
Yeah, so one panel is about, more or less. Let's say it's about 1,000 square meters that we'll be using. Meters. The roof is a bit bigger than that, but we also need to set aside some space for maintenance. We have to have a distance to the edges of the building, things like that. But it's, let's say, simplified, it's about 1,000 square meters.
Okay. And so I've heard of that a while ago already, and I've been thinking about it. I looked at the homepage, and I have to correct myself. It says here 965 Swiss francs per panel.
Yes.
And there are 211 are still available. So I'd like you to help me make up my mind. So how should I think about this offer in sort of, in two ways? First, as an investment, simply, and second, in terms of an impact investment, let me say, including the positive impacts that it might have.
Yes. So in terms of investment, so you will be investing 965 Swiss francs. And maybe the question is, how much will you make back? And we estimate that you will make back about 1,373 Swiss francs. That is a medium scenario. So we also do scenarios. We have a worst case and a best case scenario. But let's assume that you make back 1,370 Swiss francs. So that is that translates to a rentability of about 2.3% per year, which could be a lot if you compare to a bank account, maybe not so much if you compare to stock market investment. that is maybe also involves more risk, but nevertheless, you could potentially make more money. But you also have other benefits. For instance, you have a real impact on sustainable energy. I think we can really... Please.
So let's stay for a second on the financial. So you said 2.3%, and over what time frame? Is that over any time frame? Do I have to hold this panel until the end, or how does that look like?
Yes. So the duration of the contract by default is 30 years, but you can sell it at any time. Let's say at any quarter of every year, you can sell your solar panel, and then we will pay you back the remainder value of that.
Okay.
So you are very flexible. And what is also important to understand that the revenues could be higher if electricity tariffs increase, as they have in the past year, or also less, to be honest, because if let's say if it's a very, very rainy year, then you could make less money than that. So we don't guarantee an income. You, as an investor or as a buyer, you participate in the revenue, the net revenue that your solar panel can really earn.
Okay. Yeah. So this is not bad. I think 2.3%, and I assume these are annual payments that are made back.
These are quarterly payments.
Quarterly payments. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. So we will send you a document that indicates how much electricity we have produced. Actually, you have produced as the buyer. How much is the maintenance? How much is the management fee? And the remainder we will pay 4 times a year direct to your bank account.
So in a sense, I become the owner of that panel. It's like a small financial asset, and you do the whole operation and management and servicing of it. You make sure that the electricity is sold, and then I suppose you take a share of the revenue to finance your company, and the rest comes back to me.
Exactly.
Is that right?
I think that's a very important feature of our model. You're becoming the owner, and you becoming the producer of energy also. You will be an energy producer if you buy a solar panel. And so this has some implications. That, as I just said, you also participate in the risk, but also in potential additional revenue. That gives you also the right to sell it, right? But it's not like a share or something. It's not like you could tell, of course, it's an investment, but you buy actually a product. It's like you buy a computer or something, and it belongs to you.
Okay, but I mean I cannot come and sort of take this cruise off and take it home, right? I mean there's some limits to that, but it's basically there's one physical panel that is contractually belongs to me.
Exactly. Yeah, theoretically you could, but in practice it doesn't work very easily. But it doesn't make sense, let's say. But we will give you back the money if you decide not to, if you don't want it any longer. Yeah.
No, I think. I mean, for me, that's it's an important point. I don't have to commit for 30 years. Basically, I can. As a private investor, I can get exposure to that risk profile of a Swiss solar panel, and it's not quite easy, I think, to compare this to other investments that I could make. But I just looked at the current interest rate on mortgages, so I think it's around 1.7 at the moment. So it's at least more than that, And then I think the other risk that I would want to be thinking about is the longevity of your company, right? Is that perhaps some kind of counterparty risk I should be aware of?
That's always a risk. We are partners, so it's always unpleasant if your partner goes out of business. I think it is a little bit mitigated by the fact that we don't own the solar panels. So let's assume that we disappear. Then you still own the solar panels. The investors, they still own the installation. They only find a new manager of their solar panels. Or maybe the roof owner could also decide to buy back their solar panels just to make it easier to have this transition. But in theory, you could find another service provider who could basically maintain the installation and sell the electricity and also continue paying you your earnings. So we are just really the middleman. That I think that reduces the risk of us being bankrupt in the first place, because we have no obligation to pay a certain percentage of or a certain revenue, really. And in case it would happen, it would also reduce your risk of like your assets disappear. They won't disappear basically because they are not in our company balance sheet.
Yeah, so that's very interesting. I mean that is definitely a risk mitigating feature, I would say. As you say, I will own a solar panel, and then ideally I'm not stuck with the whole operating troubles, but I have a claim, so I like that. What else is something so you mentioned that there's different scenarios, sort of more pessimistic and optimistic scenarios. What are sort of the key drivers of those different scenarios?
Yes, so obviously we have price. What is the price that we can sell the solar electricity for? And this is also not guaranteed. We just we make assumptions. We also are transparent about our assumptions. On our web shop, you can find a document that details all these assumptions that we do. And apart from that, there is maintenance costs maybe. So they can also fluctuate.
Mm-hmm.
And
can I just on the it's great that on the homepage I can look into that, but basically what makes the price for this sort of the sale of electricity, how does the price get established for that? Can you explain that to me?
Yes, so we have two income streams. First is the tariff that we get from the university for the electricity that they consume inside the building. And this tariff is guaranteed in this case. So this is good in a way because that's not a risk factor. So 50% of the electricity produced can be sold for a guaranteed price to the university. Mm-hmm. That's not usually the case in our project. So here we have a project that has less risk for that part of the production. Then for the other 50%, we sell to the grid. This could be the St. Gallen Stadtwerke, like the utility of St. Gallen.
Yeah.
Or it could be another customer that we find, because our task really is to sell the electricity as good as possible. So if it could happen that we find somebody else who pays more for the electricity that we inject into their grid. And so we would sell electricity there. And this price is not guaranteed, really. So this is something that also is fluctuating. There's many different drivers of that. There is like spot market. There's also political decisions that will determine that price.
Right. But you are, there is the potential to get a markup for this particular type of electricity because it is solar power. Is that correct?
Yes. Just to give you an example of last year, I mean, is a huge geopolitical driver with the war in Ukraine. But at some point we had prices of 40 raps per kilowatt hour. And so many installations, they really made a lot of money. And
so just for our international... Just for our international listeners, 1 rappen is a sort of 100th of a Swiss franc. Just to make that clear. And you said 40 raps, and I also don't know how to say this in English, 40 raps per kilowatt hour. And that is a lot, you're saying? So because I have no feeling for these prices. Is that a high price?
Yeah, it's a very high price. Like usually... I mean, what is usually, but it's fluctuating, right? So, but we calculate on average with 11 reps for a kilowatt hour. So just to give you, now you can feel it's almost 4 times as good as we calculated. But currently in summer, it's now, I think, about 7 to 8 to 9 reps or something like that. So as I say, it's really fluctuating a lot. And we try to find... to guess an average price for the next 30 years, which is a difficult task, really.
Yes, I understand. So that is part of the risk you buy into as an investor. I understand that. But then also here, just thinking this through, you as a company, you obviously have, well, I think you do have an incentive to sell the electricity as best you can, because the benefit of that is ultimately shared between me as an investor and you. Is that correct?
Yes, that's true. And not only that, but also we have very high incentive that your solar panel will be producing electricity all the time, that it's well maintained. We basically give you a function guarantee because we also have our share, in this case 10% of the revenues of that solar panel.
10% for you, 90% for me.
Exactly.
And that is after the costs of operation, I presume.
Yes, let's say we have two different income streams, one from the building and one from the grid that we sell the electricity to. And from there we reduce the maintenance fee. So we set money aside for current or future operations. Let's say we have an insurance for your panel, for instance. Mm-hmm. And we also have some reserve to replace an inverter. Where when it is at some point it will break down, we will have some repairs. So we set aside
money. What's an inverter?
Inverter is it's an equipment that converts DC power that comes from the solar panel to AC power, alternative current power that is being used in the building or in the grid.
Oh, it's just a device that makes the solar panel energy compatible with the grid.
Exactly. Yeah, you have to convert this electricity, and this is a device that will eventually break down because it will. Yeah, it's by technical design, it will not live as long as the solar panel. Really. Yeah.
I see. But the solar panels themselves, they tend to live for 30 years. That's the time frame that you estimate they will be operational.
Yes, I think they may live even longer because these are bifacial solar panels. They have glass on each side, so they are more robust than conventional solar panels. And we think they're not we, but the manufacturer, and this has been also confirmed in some testing that they will live like maybe 40 years even. So they will probably have they're still on the roof even though the contract has ended.
Okay, so there's potentially even more production after you say the contract has ended. So I think I read that after the contract ends, the solar panels are transferred in ownership to the roof owner. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's the easiest way to define the process. What happens after the duration of the contract? Because we don't want to have like a reunion with you and some 100 other solar panel owners and decide what to do next. But so we define it a contract, and it's also an additional advantage of the roof owner. So yes, in terms of impact, your investment will have impact even after the contract duration. We could say that.
Yeah, that is the great thing or the tricky thing about impact, right? That this can be outside of the contract and accrue to other people, other parties than are specified in the contract. So let's use that as a point to transition. Thank you for all the details around the finances and the risks of that investment. Let's think about my impact. So if I'm going to do that, very simply, if I invest here, am I making a difference?
Yes, the short answer is yes, in my opinion. And let's look a little bit at the longer answer. The impact, I think, is already given because you're producing solar electricity, and you are the producer, right? That's what we defined before. So as the producer, you have the impact because every kilowatt hour of solar power will displace some other kilowatt hours in the European grid, because consumption and production always have to align. If you produce more solar power, some other energy source will produce less. And there you have your impact. The other energy source will not be solar power because Solar power is very cheap to produce once it's built. The operational costs are very cheap or very low. And so your solar panel will be replacing electricity made from coal, from natural gas, or from nuclear power.
Okay, I think another angle. So I'm not an expert on electricity market, so I'll take your word for that. We can maybe do a little deep dive into intermittency and load shifting in a minute, but something more fundamentally. I'm here in the role of an investor, so the question is a little bit: this solar panel installation, would it happen without my participation just the same, or would it otherwise be built later or not at all? I think that is one of the questions that I would like to answer.
Yes. So you're referring to additionality, right?
Yes, exactly. I mean, I understand I will own a panel, but if I think about it more broadly, sort of what would be my other options to invest roughly 1,000 Swiss francs, right? I would want to know, well, is it, in that case, making something happen that otherwise wouldn't have? So to allow me to make that sort of comparison. What would you say to that?
Yes. So let's just look at this particular project, and then we can see it as it's not, let's say, it's not a really financiable project for commercial investors because the costs are relatively high. That's true. I mean, it also reflects in the price. This price is higher than most of our projects, and this is due to the feature of the roof, that it's a green roof. So we have to elevate the solar installation above the green roof, and so it made it more expensive. So like a normal commercial investor would not consider investing in this kind of project, nor actually did the canton, the owner of the building. They didn't have an interest in investing. It doesn't fit their like spending priorities maybe, or there's many different factors involved in that decision. But the bottom line is nobody would have invested or financed this project on that particular building. So you could really, I think it's fair to say that your solar panel is really an added solar power production capacity that we add into the grid that wouldn't exist otherwise.
Okay. Yeah. So and of course I'm faculty at University of St. Gallen. So in addition to having the conviction that I am part of the community that makes this happen, it's also nice. Even you say it's a little bit more expensive, I could maybe invest in another solar panel on some roof of a barn that I have no relationship with. But it is of course that that's has some added value to myself to be invested in one of the solar panels on our roof, let me say. So that in combination makes me quite positive about your project. Thank you for clarifying that.
You're welcome. And just maybe if I may add, that the cost of the project doesn't translate in a lower profitability really, because usually if the higher cost is also will be compensated in this case by, let's say, we have a good self-consumption, meaning that a big portion of the electricity can be consumed inside the building. So maybe another project is a solar panel is cheaper, but you also make less money. So it's not necessarily a less interesting project from a financial point of view. It's just the initial cost is a little bit higher.
I see. So I will have to, I'll have to think. So I think I'm pretty committed to buy one panel. I'll have to think how good of an investment opportunity that is to maybe justify more than that. I haven't quite made up my mind on that front, but I'll definitely go for one. Yes, let's a little bit on this question of solar panel and solar power and what it displaces. So is solar energy kind of the right thing for, like if we move to a bigger picture, is solar energy the right thing for Switzerland? I mean, St. Gallen is known to be very foggy in winter. Is this in a way I'm asking, is this the the best technology to produce, carbon-free or low-carbon electricity in Switzerland?
Yeah, so let's move there. So I don't think there's any perfect energy source that hasn't any negative impacts whatsoever. And also solar has some negative impacts. We are not, we like solar a lot, but we are also, we try to have an objective view on things. So it's not perfect. But if I consider alternatives, I don't see real alternatives that can then match solar. So to start, it's the only domestic form of energy production that still has a relevant potential and that is socially accepted, right? We have hydro energy.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost used 100%. So there's maybe some small projects, but it's not a relevant potential that is still available. We would have wind, but it's not accepted. So this like planning times there, they go forever, decades rather than years. So this is also not contributing significantly to producing electricity in the near future. And then all the other alternatives, they use fuel that has to be sourced from abroad. So we have a dependence from foreign providers, which, as we found out last year, can have certain risk also involved and certain costs. And overall, they are more expensive and also maybe not available in the required time frames to really provide solutions for, we need to produce electricity now. We will have to replace nuclear power station at some point also, if you like them or not. So I don't see any alternatives really in Switzerland.
Yeah. Just on the last point, the need to replace nuclear, if we like it or not, what's your view there?
What's my view? I think that they are expensive. So I see prices paid for in the UK, in France, in Finland, and I see that they are probably double as expensive than solar in Switzerland at the moment, and probably 3 times as expensive than solar on a bigger scale in Spain. So from a purely economic perspective, they are just not competitive with solar, and solar is decreasing in price every year, and nuclear was increasing in price every year. So actually, this differential will just increase in the future. And so we don't even have to talk so much about other about risk, about storage of waste, things like that. They add, in my view, to the inconvenience of nuclear. But even from a purely economic point of view, I don't think it's a good, and actually nobody wants to invest in it, right? I mean, everybody says clear, if we ever going to build a new nuclear plant, it will have to be invested by tax money, basically, or guaranteed by tax money somehow, just as is the case in the UK. So this is, in my point of view, that is not a good argument for nuclear.
At least what we can say is that it's going to be very hard to do a crowd-funded nuclear power station. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think. Yeah, that's. I would also agree with that.
Yeah. Just one thing, because people are bugging me about this sometimes. The issue of intermittency, right? That solar power, of course, is available when the sun shines, and much less so when it doesn't, and that doesn't always meet the peaks in electricity demand. Is that something that you somehow need to calculate into the cost of solar power at a more systemic level, the need for storage then, or some sort of load management?
Yes. I mean, that's a valid point. Obviously, the sun doesn't always shine. That's true. I would say, actually, the solar production profile is quite a good match to a consumption profile of us as a whole. If you think about it, we have a lot of solar during the day, and we also have a lot of economic and other activities during the day. So this is a good match. What we don't have, what is not perfect, of course, is production in the evening and also in wintertime. So we have to look at these problems. And as of now, we don't need solution just now, because we only have about 5% of solar power in the Swiss grid. So, but we will have we will have to develop these solutions in the future. But there are, I don't see why we wouldn't find out technical solutions to these problems as well. I mean, storage is also all over the place. It's developing very, very quickly. We will have a huge capacity of battery capacity in electric cars that could be used, to bridge the gap from sunset to sunrise easily, really, from a capacity point of view. And then, of course, we have to address the season storage. But that is also, we see the solutions, they are just not economic yet because the incentives are not there yet. So we really have to work on the incentives, on system design. And I have no doubt that human talent and will provide solutions, and also investors will support that, because you can make money on an intelligent storage solution in the future. That's no question.
Yeah. Thank you for putting that into perspective for us. I'm still just, I really enjoy having you as someone who knows a lot about this area, basically advise me on how I should navigate this as a potential impact investor.
And you don't have to believe me, right? I'm also not an expert in system design, but there's a lot of studies coming up that clearly demonstrate that we can have a 100% renewable energy system. It's technically feasible, and it will also be cheaper than business as usual scenario, where we also have a lot of costs that are imposed on us by technical factors, by retirement of nuclear power plants, we have a lot of replacement investment anyway. And business as usual will also trigger a lot of costs, environmental costs, social costs, that we don't have if you go to a renewable energy system. So I think the facts, they tell us that we can do it and it will be cheaper.
Right. How would you say, you've been doing Solarify for a while now, I think something like 7 years, if I counted correctly. What would you say, how would Switzerland look like without Solarify?
Yeah, well, to be honest, not much different really, because we are still a small company, obviously. But yes, so we would have 6 gigawatt hours less of clean Swiss-made energy, and we would have 14 million Swiss francs that would continue to not earn any significant money on the bank account. And they would also not contribute to the energy transition. So these are small sums, but still, it's a small contribution, I think. And we have...
No, can you just... I don't think these are necessarily small sums. So you said just the how many millions and how many gigawatt?
So about 6 gigawatt hours per year that we're going to produce about approximately this year, and it will be maybe 10 next year. We're growing quickly. And so all our customers, which are about 1,600 people, they have given us 14 million Swiss francs to be invested in additional solar power projects in Switzerland.
So 6 gigawatt hours, 14 million Swiss francs, and you're on a growth trajectory. So I actually find that very impressive. Can you give us a sense of what is a gigawatt hour?
Yes, so gigawatt hours is about the amount that about 6,000 people consume yearly in Switzerland.
6,000. So 36,000 people, their consumption is kind of what you're producing currently, right? Every year.
No, I'm sorry. This was the 6 gigawatt hours equals about the consumption of 6,000 people.
All the 6. Okay.
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah,
okay.
Exactly.
So I multiplied already. Okay. So
yeah, exactly.
Okay. So let's think of a small village or medium-sized village with 6,000 people. Okay.
Yes.
And it's growing. So if we think about scaling this, what are currently the bottlenecks to scale this, as fast as possible? What are sort of the limiting factors that you see at the moment?
Yeah. So that's a real balancing issue. So we really never had enough roof that we could rent in the past, and now we are actually more or less in a balance. So we have now more projects. You see several of them on the internet, on our web shop, and what we don't have enough at the moment are maybe solar planners and installers. There's still a lack of capacity. I mean, the market was growing 50% per year. That's a growth rate that is really disturbing for any industry, I think. And so did we. The solar industry, they really had problems to properly plan and execute all these projects that are coming up in Switzerland. So also we have increasing waiting times for grid connection requests. And so this is an issue that is also bothering us a little bit, that projects would be ready, but we cannot have answers if we can connect them to the grid. But then, of course, small, yeah.
And that is more a regulatory issue, or is that also a human resources problem, that just the lack of people?
I think it's the second, really. I mean, we do have regulatory issues, no question, but in this case, people are there, they're working, but there's just too many requests at the moment.
Okay, so that at the moment that seems like, I'm just like to emphasize that impact often lies where the problems are at the moment, at least in this scaling, on this scaling front. So more people with the necessary skills to actually do the physical installation and the planning and grid connection, that is sort of where the bottleneck is at the moment.
Yeah, and then for our company, of course, we, as I said, it has to be in balance with outreach, with marketing. People have to know us, and we have now a certain network, but we are growing so fast now on the roof side that we also have to do more activities to reach people so they can find us, and if they like our products, the solar panels, then you can buy them.
Would you say this is only for rich people? I was thinking, why not plug this into sort of a pretty standard wealth management or a pension plan, where you say, one panel, you could easily have that as sort of a small pocket, to add to the other investments that you have. You just need to get into the network of some distributor. Is that an option, or do you prefer to do it online through your own platform?
Yeah, the thing is, the way we do it, this is not a financial service. It's not regulated. And so that's very important, because it's impossible for us to be a bank and to be regulated by FINMA, by the authorities. So I think we are very careful to market also this as the buying of a product, and not like we are not like investor. We don't counsel people on investment decisions. We're just offering a product on the internet. So I think this will be that will stay the same. But of course, people can think of that as an investment, and also we have clients that they invest. They buy some panels in every project that we offer them, right? And so in this way, they also manage to have a risk distribution all over Switzerland in many different regions with different solar radiation, or different tariff structures. So it gives them also a kind of a risk distribution that is possible for our model. They just have to do it themselves.
You don't offer basically a diversified panel investment where I give you a certain amount of money once and then you distribute that across different roofs. I have to do that myself.
Yes, because exactly that service would bring us to the like financial regulation requirements, and we cannot do that.
I see. Very interesting. But what you do sell, and you call it a product, it has very much the characteristics of an investment. And I certainly do think about it like that.
Yes, and that's also correct. But investment is not a very strictly defined term. And it's an investment. That's correct. It's just not like investment in a term of financial regulation.
That is fascinating. And financial regulation is extremely important in many ways. But I think it's also fair to say that a lot of investments that have really quite a convincing impact potential are out of reach for small-scale investors for regulatory reasons.
Exactly.
So that is an innovative solution you found just to sell this not as an investment, even though you can use it as one. That is very interesting.
Yes, and I think, as you say, it's 1,000 Swiss francs. Some projects are also cheaper, like maybe 700 Swiss francs. That is doable for many people, but not for all. We recognize that. It would be possible to split them even in smaller pieces of a solar panel, maybe. So that's legally possible. We just didn't develop that at the moment because, as I just mentioned, we had usually a waiting list of buyers or investors, or not enough roofs. So that wasn't. We didn't have to do it, but it would be possible to split that even further. But then I think the 700-800 Swiss francs, that's something that is a big enough market for us to develop for a very long time.
Yeah. What about similar business models in other countries and regions? So Solarify, I think you are in Switzerland, the only player I know who does this sort of, rooftop solar service. I have heard of, I think, First Solar in the US and Ecoligo doing similar things internationally. So are there any plans to expand beyond Switzerland in your case, or do you feel you have enough to do within Switzerland?
There's no plans, but maybe it's, of course, always possible and certainly interesting. I mean, projects are much larger and differently structured, or they could also add. There's also an economic interest, I think, also for buyers. But no plans. We are really very busy in Switzerland. I mean, we are still small, so we can grow 50% for a couple of years still, and then potentially all still go abroad, or maybe doing that in parallel. So these are ideas maybe, but no plans. I looked at this landscape when I founded Solarify. That was, as you said, 7 years ago. So I'm not very up to date about who else is there everywhere. What I found was that mostly they work with loans as a legal instrument to implement a platform maybe, and this could work. But I found at the moment it wouldn't work for us because the loan, the risk that goes with a loan is much higher, because in the case of a default of the platform, the loan usually will be lost, which is not the case in our case, as I just explained, right? That the solar panel will you'll still be the owner of that solar panel. Or maybe there are funds like solar funds that are available, but they are not always available for this amount of money that we the entry, the price of entry for that product is much higher usually.
So we'll have to reassess the international landscape, but I certainly would agree that you find a very elegant crowd financing solution. And of course, for the record, this is not investment advice, but I've made up my mind. I'm going to buy one of your panels and look forward to it. And of course, I'm an affiliate of the University of St. Gallen, so I'll proudly display that as soon as it happens. Thank you very much, Aurel, for giving me all the details. I think you've really opened up the book for us and told us everything we need to know. I like to conclude this podcast always with giving people the opportunity to sort of state a wish, what they would wish will happen in their space that they overlook. So looking over the next couple of years, what would be your wish that you would like to see in your space?
Yes, thank you very much. First, thank you very much for having me here. It was really a pleasure also for your questions, and of course, very delighted that you decided to buy the solar panel with us. So we will stay in touch for sure. And so, the wish. Oh, that's a hard one. Maybe let's say I would, in one sense, get the incentives right. I think we want to develop a market-oriented business model, And it's quite difficult because there's so many incentives that are involved in energy production in some way. And I think if we just could have get the incentives right, so the market would solve many problems. Really, we don't, right now we're depending a lot of subsidies to make it work. But if you remove all the subsidies, I think solar would be very competitive. So that would be much more efficient for the economy, for the society as a whole, to have an energy system structured in this way. And I think this is maybe one wish. It's very difficult to implement. There's so many interests involved. But if we get the incentives right, then we will be able to find efficient solutions. It will be affordable. I think it will be also, we have a more resilient system in the future. Solar is so decentralized, so it will contribute to that. And I think this will be overall a big improvement over the current system.
Thank you. I think that is a great and fundamental wish, getting incentives right. So very much subscribe to that. And I hope I can make a contribution. I'm certain you will keep pushing in this direction. And thank you so much for being here. And I wish you all the best with Solarify and beyond.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure.
Innovations in Sustainable Finance, a University of St. Gallen podcast by Julian Kölbel.